Nostradamus saw in his future three men that he called antichrists. One was Napoleon, the second one was Hitler, and the third one is the one that is to come, who is said to be the worst of all because he will learn from the mistakes of the others. A very dangerous person. He didn't like the term Antichrist. He said it was a Christian term and it was not exactly what he meant. But he said if you think of Christ as representing people, humanity, then Antichrist is someone who does terrible things against humanity, against people. And it can be the type of personality like Genghis Khan or Attila the Hun, the type that doesn't care anything about what it's doing, it only wants power. So this is what he meant by an Antichrist. But the third one, he gave us a great deal of information about him because he wanted us to do something to stop the man. He said, in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, and other books in the Old Testament, the people saw the same things that he saw, the prophets did. They only put them in their symbolism they could understand in their time, but they all saw the same thing. And that the man he refers to as the Antichrist is the number 666 in the book of Revelation, called the beast. Of course, he said 666 also refers to his connections with computers. So there's a lot more to it. But he has been predicted as far back as Bible times. So he said he has a destiny to fulfill. He has to come, but after he comes, what happens after that is in the hands of mankind. Do we allow it to go through the worst case scenarios, or can we lessen it? That's the point. But the man is alive now, and he has his destiny to fulfill. We were given a lot of information about this man because he is so important. We have his horoscope. He was born on February the 4th, 1962, in Jerusalem, but he's not Jewish. And his parents were killed during the Israeli war, and when he was about 6 or 7 years old, and he was raised by his uncle. His uncle is a very evil man, and we have had many people see him, and we have, in my work, and we had one woman who was able to put together a police composite picture of the uncle and of the Antichrist. She was a psychic who had worked with police on many cases, so she knew how to do the police composite kits. But the uncle took the young boy and was raising him as his own. What the young boy doesn't know was that the uncle had his parents killed, so he could have him for his own. And he has gotten together a very powerful group of rich Arabs in the Middle East, and they've been taking care of this young boy and grooming him for the role he is to take. It's a very powerful group of people that control everything that happens in the Middle East. They're the puppet masters behind the scenes. Nostradamus said, by the time 7 puppets arise in the Middle East, you will realize what is happening, that they are not the real leaders of the countries, but they are the puppets being manipulated by the puppet masters behind the scenes. The young Antichrist went to college in Egypt, and we were working on this at the same time he was in college, so we were shown several scenes of him in college. We knew where he was living. We had all this information. His main courses that he took were economics, philosophy, and computers. The computers were going to be very important in his future that he was planning. But after he got out of college, he lived on the different estates of these very rich people. He has no home of his own, but travels around to the different estates. And we saw him once in a big estate on the banks of the Nile, and another one in Syria, and in Oman during the Gulf War. Oman is to the bottom of Saudi Arabia. So we saw him in all of these places during the Gulf War, and he's traveled around from place to place. But well, Nostradamus said, you must remember that this, in the beginning, this man will appear as a savior, the man with all the answers, the man with the golden tongue. And this will how he will make his conquests in the beginning. But he said, you must remember he's not what he appears to be. He's the wolf in sheep's clothing. Because by the time people realize what is happening, then everything will all come out. We were told in 1995, if you were watching, you'd become aware of these people and what they are doing. And of course, I get lots of mail from people trying to tell me who they think the Antichrist is. But a lot of the people they have told me about, I think, are members of the group. They're very rich, but I don't think they are the Antichrist because they don't fit all of the other criteria.
In fact, Nostradamus himself seems to definitively say that no recent U.S. president fits the bill.
The third Antichrist very soon annihilated. 27 years his bloody war will last.
This prophecy suggests a long-lasting worldwide war will follow the third Antichrist's death. Could the third Antichrist have already come and gone? The Bible points to a series of cataclysms that may coincide with the aftermath of the third Antichrist. The book of Revelation states,
"There was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood, and the stars fell from the sky to the earth."
Many say the natural and unnatural disasters that now plague the earth indicate we are at a tipping point. But are we really closer to the end than ever before?
The prophets are trying to tell us about climate change, about famine, about a figure in the Middle East that we need to recognize before he starts a 27-year war. These are the things that the prophets like Nostradamus are trying to make us see and change.
If we accept the theories by adherents of prophecy that we may be on the path to Armageddon, might we have time to influence those events? Are the multiple quatrains of Nostradamus hard evidence that the third Antichrist is among us?
The final line, he talks about one of the ugliest visions that I've ever seen.
The heretics dead, captives exiled, blood-soaked human bodies.
Is he talking about hemorrhagic fever when he talks about blood-soaked human bodies, which is also something that certain biological agents do?
And a reddened, icy hail covering the earth.
Does he mean a red and icy hail from some kind of nuclear discharge that creates a modest nuclear winter?
Little rain, warm wind, wars, incursions.
The pestilences, those kinds of things are just getting closer together, and then they're escalating.
A horrible undoing of people and animals.
I think Nostradamus in his prophecies often shows a fascination and a horror. He uses the word horrible a lot in looking at the more negative possibilities of the future.
It is fact that multiple crises worldwide have deepened. Nuclear weapons among rogue nations have increased tenfold. Economies around the world remain on the brink of collapse. The U.S. government prepares for another terrorist attack on American soil. More coincidence? For believers, these are not random events, but dire signs of the coming apocalypse.
We're seeing the mass deterioration of our Earth and its environment. As that sea level starts to raise up and countries start to be flooded, that's when the mass panic is going to hit.
It's going to come upon us so quick that people will be panicked. We're talking about complete universal destruction where nobody can help anybody.
But others suggest the prophecies of Nostradamus have a decidedly different meaning and purpose.
I think people need comfort. They want to know what's going to happen, especially at times of great unease, such as we're experiencing at the moment. And Nostradamus appears to offer some sort of certainty in the sense that so many of his quatrains have been seen to be correct in retrospect.
As the theory goes, the end fast approaches. The sands slip away and the hands spin out of control. The third Antichrist wreaks havoc. Is this our future? Perhaps Nostradamus is warning us that people must pay attention and act.
So, due to technology, the third Antichrist will have a greater killing capacity than either Napoleon or Hitler.
Nostradamus wrote quatrains predicting global warming and the changing of the climates of the world.
And we're seeing this now, that seasons would blend and we would no longer be able to tell one season from another.
While some may question the relationship between human activity and global warming, what is beyond dispute is that 9 out of the 10 hottest years ever recorded have taken place since the year 2000. And this trend shows no sign of letting up. The spring of 2012 was the warmest ever recorded in America, and the resulting droughts and wildfires have cost lives and billions of dollars. And for some island nations, even a modest continuation of warming trends could cause them to be wiped off the map. 2 of the most worrisome effects of climate change are the rise of sea levels and escalating ocean temperatures. And Nostradamus predicted both.
In quatrain number 2-3, Nostradamus is clearly referring to global warming. He states that because of the solar heat on the sea, from Negroponte the fish is half cooked.
The local people will eat them when food will fail in Words and Genoa.
This quatrain refers to the effect of solar heat upon the sea and other lethal toxins that are affecting the temperature of the oceans. We are seeing the death of our oceans. We are seeing the death of coral reefs, entire schools of fish washing ashore, dead and diseased.
Nostradamus has predicted dangers from the heavens and the Earth's core, as well as cataclysmic climate change, all of which leading to a breakdown of civilization itself. According to the prophet, in the face of global turmoil, the very embodiment of evil will arise, a leader bent on the ultimate destruction of mankind.
The third Antichrist will have to be worse than all the others.
But who could this fiendish leader be? Although many names have been discussed, the true identity of the third and final Antichrist is still shrouded in mystery.
He's like the spider waiting for his time behind the scene. He will take advantage of the world situation to make his move for power, and he will succeed.
And in quatrain number 10-10, Nostradamus wrote,
One worse than his grandfathers, uncles, or fathers, in steel, fire, waters, bloody, and inhuman.
Like the 2 who came before, it is believed that the third Antichrist will plunge the world into devastating global conflict.
when the third Antichrist takes power and he starts World War III, we're going to see the whole world come to its knees. So, due to technology, the third Antichrist will have a greater killing capacity than either Napoleon or Hitler.
Despite the collapse of the Soviet Union, some experts believe the risk of nuclear war has never been higher than it is today.
There's no question that we have a much higher concern about a nuclear conflict now because of all the new states with nuclear weapons.
If Nostradamus could see us at this point right now, he would say we're teetering on the edge.
But as wars erupt, political powers shift, and great changes bombard Mother Nature's balance, scholars fear that the ultimate realization of Nostradamus's dark visions may be just around the corner.
Nostradamus gives the doomsday death toll. Out of 3 people you know, 2 will not survive. He says 2/3 of the human race will fail, will disappear from all of this.
So what I think we need to do, wherever you are in life, you need to snap to the fact that these predictions are true. So the compelling question is, can we change our destiny, or are we locked in to what Nostradamus said is going to happen? Everything bad that can wipe out humanity, Nostradamus has predicted. The way that we react to these will perhaps be a key to our survival.
The other side is far more diligent about looking for that Messiah than we are.
Our counterintelligence program must prevent the rise of a black Messiah.
That's what the counterintelligence program
of J. Edgar Hoover and the government of the United States was all about. Well, wait a minute, J. Edgar. Why do you want to stop the birth of a Messiah? Why would you use a religious term? It's because they knew that the Messiah was to come up among you. They knew that the Jesus you would be looking for would be one of your own people.
Chapter 14. The Coming of the Antichrist. Throughout the sessions, there were little bits and pieces revealed about this personality known as the Antichrist. He seemed to be a secretive figure, shadowy even to Nostradamus himself. I have tried to include in this chapter what details we could find out about him, in order to try to understand this person who is destined to loom very large on the future of mankind. When the translators refer to the Antichrist that we've been talking so much about, they say that Nostradamus called him the third Antichrist. Is that correct? He says that it depends upon your point of view whether he would be the second or the third Antichrist. From a European point of view, he would be considered the third Antichrist. From the other viewpoint, there would only be 2 Antichrists rather than 3. Whose viewpoint would that be? He says anybody non-European, Asiatics, third world countries, the Americas. I thought maybe he said something in his quatrains that made them assume that there would be 3. He says there are quatrains that are referring to the third Antichrist. He says he doesn't specifically enumerate them, but there have been quatrains that have come to pass and people have realized that the quatrain applied to a particular event, and they were able to interpret that he was speaking of 3 different men when he is speaking of the Antichrist. By his definitions, who were the other Antichrists? He says Napoleon was one, but that's strictly from a European viewpoint. Because Napoleon mainly affected Europe and that was it, although it was devastating enough. And so only the Europeans would consider Napoleon an Antichrist. But the other Antichrist, regardless of your viewpoint, is very clear. He says that would be Adolf Hitler. What Hitler did and what the coming Antichrist will do will affect the whole world, and not just Europe. And he considers the Antichrist that's coming to be the third. Yes, and he says he's even worse than Adolf Hitler was. Is there any information we would be allowed to have about the Antichrist? How do you mean? What sort of information? Identifying perhaps where he would be located at this present time in our world, and perhaps his age? He says it's hard for him to spot the location because of the turmoil of the timelines at this point in time. Since we're nearing close to the events to happen, it causes an effect somewhat like a thunderstorm in the timelines. He knows that the Antichrist is in the Middle East somewhere. He can't spot him exactly because of all the violence and the negative events in that part of the world, which cloud his vision somewhat. He says this Antichrist at the present time is a young man and at a very crucial time in his life. Any strong impressions he gets at this time will have an effect on his future life path. And where he is at this time in the Middle East, there is a lot of political maneuvering, violence, and corruption. Due to the atmosphere during this crucial time of his life, it's having an effect on him, and he's coming to realize what his life's destiny is to be. But you said he was such a major figure, it would be pretty hard to prevent him from coming to power. This is true. The events leading up to his coming to power were set into motion centuries ago, as far back as the first conception and inception of the Ottoman Empire. Century 1, number 76. This man will be called by a barbaric name that 3 sisters will receive from destiny. He will speak then to a great people in words and deeds. More than any other man will have fame and renown. He says this refers to the Antichrist. The 3 sisters refer to the 3 fates. The one who spins out the line of life, the other who measures the length of the life, and the third who cuts it off at the proper length.